Let's introduce another character. The round of applause. Let's talk about psychedelics, especially this class of psychedelics known as serotonergic psychedelics like LSD, psilocybin, DMT. Let's continue zooming inside the brain. What happens when someone takes a psychedelic?
Right. So psychedelics have been around forever. As long as human beings have been around, we've been taking psychoactive substances. And most of them are either plant-derived or fungi-derived. So most of them are natural. Some of them are synthesized. LSD is a synthesized molecule that was inspired by a naturally derived ergotamine from a fungus. These molecules that exist in nature many of them hit the serotonin receptors. Not just one, they hit a few, okay? And with different degree and different affinity, and that's variable from drug to drug. Now, these drugs, when they hit these receptors, as a consequence, impact circuits in the brain and change brain states and the way the brain is functioning. So one of the things that they do is alter our perception of reality and alter our perception. So for example, you may see something that doesn't really exist in the real world. Anyway, in any case, you and I are agreeing to what is in the room right now.
The shared
right?
network effect.
We have a shared understanding of the fact that this is a bottle. You and I will agree that this is sort of a teal, blue, green kind of a color. Depending on if we're not colorblind, we can kind of... But if your brain now perceives stuff that isn't there, for your brain it is there, because your brain is actually having a perception of, let's say if I tell you there is a glass here of Diet Coke with ice, you're going to say, no, there's nothing here, because there isn't. But if my brain has constructed the image of this glass with Diet Coke in it, for my brain it does exist. I'm hallucinating.
This is because that receptor has been...
It's because I've triggered some circuit in my brain that has given me, in my visual cortex most likely, which has given me a percept of an object which doesn't exist, right? But my brain is eventually perceiving that object. So for my brain, that object is there. I give you an example of a visual. I could have auditory hallucinations where I hear things that are not there. I could have somatosensory sensations where I say, oh, there are spiders running all over my arms, but there are no spiders. Now, what is happening is your brain is perceiving things and your brain is activated in the absence of an obvious sensory cue. So your sensory cortices can get activated. You can also have broad activation of multiple circuits that shift your state of awareness of the world, right? You may imagine you're floating, which we know we're not. But you can have that out-of-body sensation or a change perception or synesthesia where you start hearing colors and seeing sound, etc. So these are extremely potent drugs and they have the capacity to work on diverse receptors which are distributed over multiple cortical circuits. And as a consequence of that, they can shift both sensory awareness, but also awareness of other things in the environment and also one's own internal perception of oneself. So interoceptive things that we consider internal perception of our own internal state can also change. And because there are such broad effects, it's a little hard to predict what will happen to an individual when they take a psychedelic and exactly how they will respond. So, right, it's a little hard to make that predictive statement how that drug is going to work on. So some people have really bad trips. Some people have good trips which they'll walk away from feeling like they have had some profound insight. Some people are horrified and traumatized because they have had a sense of impending doom. It's been a terrible experience. And also depending on the drug, how long it lasts in your system, how quickly it's cleared, how long this will change, what are your environment conditions in which the drug has been taken. So these drugs have been around for a long time, but they're very potent. And so they deserve a fundamental degree of respect that any molecule that is this potent should be given, right? If something has a capacity to fundamentally change your state of consciousness, you should give it the due respect that any such molecule should command, right? I think that those molecules are fascinating because they allow us access into understanding brains and nervous systems in a way that we have not had so far. They're also capable of changing mood states. And so they are well worth exploring from a research perspective and studying well and looking at carefully, because there are examples of both anecdotal as well as from clinical trials where they've had a positive impact on individuals who are clinically severely depressed or have PTSD or have substance abuse, for example. Someone who's an alcoholic but under the influence of a psychedelic has then actually been able to be weaned off that state.
So what happens when they take a psychedelic?
So,
Are you combating early life stress that we spoke about?
So we don't know if psychedelics combat early life stress, but psychedelics enhance plasticity in the brain. So in some sense, there is this debate about whether psychedelics reopen a critical period plasticity-like state in the adult brain.
Oh, like you're young again.
Like your brain is in principle capable of more change than it would have been and more ability to reorient and rewire circuitry under the influence of these drugs. But now that tells you that you're taking the brain back to a little bit of a tabula rasa where it has a room to go.
Blank slate, yeah.
Yeah, so now that does not tell you which direction it will go in. It just tells you that there's more available plasticity. I think they're molecules that need to be given their due respect and caution, but they should be studied. They absolutely should be studied because they're potent and they may open the window to a generation of potential future treatment that could be path breaking, because we really have a missing ability to really treat several psychiatric disorders well. We don't have excellent treatments for a number of psychiatric disorders. There's too much treatment resistance. And it's an emerging and burgeoning need. Given the world that we have and the complexity of the world we have, depression rates, generalized anxiety rates, substance abuse rates are going upward rather than downward.